why, as a church, we come together. We come together to strengthen one another and to gather strength for ourselves. Because no matter who you are, you cannot go through this life by yourself. You will be eaten up and thrown away. The world will use you and abuse you because that's the world. The world is Satan. So many times when we look for certain things in the world, we keep asking ourselves, God, how much longer are you going to let this go on? And sometimes can I say that we're a little bit selfish because God knows the exact day and time that he's going to say, son, it's over. Go get my children. There's nothing we're going to be able to do anything about that. That's his. But what we can do is tell everybody about Jesus. Because in this world, they have no hope. You think about it, and you look just what's going on in this world. We are so divided. Families are divided. Children today are now trying to decide what they are, much less who they are. One day they want this label, the next day they have another label, because that's what kids do. We grow up, we're learning. We're trying to process all the information that we're given. And unfortunately, the information that we're given is not always the correct information. Because most of the time, the information that's given to us is given to us because they want to control us. They don't want us knowing everything. Because if we knew everything, then they wouldn't be in power. But may I say this to you? I don't care who's in office. They're coming out of that office. I don't care who's in the Congress. They're coming out of the Congress. They may live to be 100 and still be there, but sooner or later they're coming out of there. They're going to die. But may I say this to you? I've never seen anywhere where God has says, I'm off the throne. You all do what you want to do. I keep reading that God says, I am still on the throne. I sent my son to die for you. And one of these days, he's coming to bring you here. And we're going to have the marriage supper of the Lamb. And it's going to be a time like never before. And so, some of the that we've talked about, we come here for strengthening. We come here for rhythm. And as we were talking about, what generally doesn't happen a lot, especially now, a lot of Christians no longer read their Bible. They want someone to read it for them. It's like, let me look up and see what this scholar says about this verse, or what that scholar says about that verse, because I don't understand it. And the problem is that the Bible says that if we seek wisdom and understanding, he will give it to us. And sometimes we need to go back and ask God, what? You're the one that wrote this. I think you probably understand what it was that you meant for it to say. So God, why don't you just teach me? I think that would be cool. You know, because why not go to the author? Because the author wrote it, they should understand what it is that they were writing. But sometimes we don't. We want to get it from somebody else. We want to get the skinny of it instead of really having to dig sometimes. So we got that. we got strength. We got rhythm. We got encouragement. We already talked about encouragement. We get strength from one another, and then we get unity. And those are the things that we talked about. And again, unity does not mean we all think alike. Because if we all think alike, then we have no need for each other. May I say this to you, that the way we learn is from each other. God shows something to you that you share with us. And we all learn together because that's who we are. So this morning, since we talked about what is the church and why we gather here and all of this stuff, let's talk about a welcome reward. Because when you look at the life of Christ, you're going to see a life that is welcoming. A life that embraced other people. And this is one of the things that a lot of the people didn't like about him. Because they didn't mind him embracing people. They didn't like the people that he was embracing. You see, because these were in their society, these were the lowlifes. These were the unworthy people. These were the people that I don't want to be around. I might get my hands dirty. I might catch what they've got. It's really wild that Jesus touched a leper. It's really amazing that Jesus told a woman caught in adultery, "Woman, where's your accusers? Neither do I condemn thee, but go and sin no more." It's amazing that Jesus took a gentleman that had bad temper, real bad temper, and said, "On this rock I'll build my church because you understand who I am." It's amazing that he took a bunch of people that didn't get along with each other. As a matter of fact, they began to argue about who's going to sit on the left and on the right when he gets into heaven. And he took all of these people that sometimes had their own agenda. Because even sometimes they would say, "Lord, why are you choosing these people? They're not Jewish. They're Samaritans. Why would you welcome them? And Lord, they don't have the fine dress. They don't have the fine homes. So God, why would you embrace them to come in to do these things?" But can I tell you something? Jesus is the most embracing individual that I've ever seen. And he embraces the people that hurt the most. And may I say this to you, that the people that Jesus embraces, which is all of us, he does it with dignity and with honor and with grace. And when he sees you and me, you know what he sees? He doesn't see a person that's hurting all the time. He knows we do. He understands that. He feels our pain. But do you know what he sees? What Jesus sees in each and every one of us is a miraculous, eternal creation of God. He doesn't look at whether you're male or female, rich or poor, young or old. He sees each of us equally as an eternal creation of God. And sometimes he's saying to us, "Hey, hold on a minute. This is how I see them. This is the way you need to see each other. And if we, as God's people, could learn to look at each other as an eternal creation from God, and not just from God, but for God. God longed for a relationship that he could only have with man. No other part of his creation. And he loves it so much. C.S. Lewis said this. He says, there are no ordinary people. He says, you have never talked to a mere mortal. Next to the blessed sacrament itself, your neighbor is the holiest object presented to your senses. Next to the holiest, your neighbor is the holiest object presented to your senses. Remember what they asked Jesus one day? Lord, who is my neighbor? Everyone is my neighbor. So everyone is closest and the best that he's got. So when C.S. Lewis wrote this in his book called The Weight of Glory, think about it. How many times do you say to yourself, I'm nothing, I'm just an ordinary person? No, I'm not. I am an eternal creation of God. I'm not ordinary. I'm extraordinary. And sometimes we forget about that. I was joking this morning with Carol and her mother. And I was saying that, you know, the most blessed words that every one of us just long to hear is when we stand before God and he says, well done, thou good and faithful servant. And I said, you need to understand what is your purpose in life. And I said, I understand mine fully. My purpose in life was to God put me here on this life to give everybody a hard time. I don't care who you are. You know, just give them a hard time. Just put them, just don't let them ever get comfortable. You know, just kind of keep pushing. And I truly believe that when I get to heaven, I'm going to hear him say, well done, thou good and faithful servant. And if he doesn't say that, then I'm going to say, hey, hold on just 1 minute. I'm going to get you all up there behind me. And I'm going to say, ask them. Because I believe they'll tell you that I gave them a hard time. But anyway, what we need to understand is that none of us are ordinary. So quit acting like you're some ordinary person or an ordinary people. You're not. We're extraordinary people. And this is what we're talking about with this welcome reward. Because what has he given us? If we are children of God, he has given us something eternal. It isn't just going to go away. One of the things that we fail to realize, and that is this. When you come to know Christ, you get up a changed person. What you need to understand is this. That person that you presented to Christ is gone. You are no longer that person. You say, well, I look the same. I don't care. I act the same. I don't care. You're a changed person. And from that day forward, he says that you are a new creation. And that what is he doing? He's taking the parts that were there and he's redefining them and making them over to be able to be for the glory of him, not for the glory of you. He doesn't erase your memory. The memories are still there, but instead of being critical of those memories and always allowing Satan to beat you down with those memories, you need to thank God, because even because of the memories, he still loves me. And he always will. And he won't stop, because it's eternal. So anyone, and let me give me the first two verses, if you would, please, out of Matthew chapter 10, verses 40 through 42. Look at what he says. The one who welcomes you welcomes me. The one who welcomes you welcomes me. This is what Christ is saying. That whenever you welcome this person, that is an eternal creation of God, when you welcome them, then you are welcoming Jesus. And the one who welcomes me also welcomes the one who sent me. And who sent him? God did. So if we want to welcome God, first of all, we have to welcome Jesus. And if we want to welcome Jesus, we've got to welcome those around us. He goes on, anyone who welcomes a prophet, because he is a prophet, will receive a prophet's reward. And anyone who welcomes a righteous person, because he's righteous, will receive a righteous person's reward. And whoever gives even a cup of cold water to one of these little ones, because he is a disciple, truly I tell you, he will never lose his reward. What we fail to understand sometimes in what Jesus is trying to teach us and trying to say to us is this: that it is not just a blessing to welcome someone into your life. Okay? It's also about their blessings. If they are a prophet, what did he say? He says, when you welcome them into your life, you receive a blessing. But not only are you receiving your blessing, if they are a prophet, you're also receiving a prophet's reward. And if they are a disciple, you are receiving the disciple's rewards. So may I say this to you, that when you begin to start receiving people into your life, it's not just blessing you, it's also getting the blessings that are going to come from to them. They are going to overflow from them onto you. This is what I'm saying. We don't understand that we are blessed beyond measure. There are times everybody says, well, I just want to count my blessing. You can't. You can't. Because they just keep coming. When we begin to start increasing the fold, and how we do this, it starts increasing our blessings. Because we're a blessing to one another. It's like, I already shared with you, the young lady that I ran into. I came to provide, to be a blessing to her. But what I get out of that was a lot more than I think that I gave to her. she gives me a lot more. Just the way she feels and talks and just understands all of this. It's just amazing how just little things sometimes that we just take for granted, that to some people, ladies and gentlemen, it is like the whole world has just been given to them. And we don't understand. But what Jesus is teaching us is the importance of welcoming people. That is why I stand before you as your pastor, and always have stood before you as your pastor and said, we welcome anyone into this church. I hear people say, well, how do I have to be dressed? Clothes on. That's just our dress code, is clothes on. And if you don't have any, I've got a robe back here. And if you want, we'll put you in the baptismal. We'll put it to use. But hey, it is. I don't have any money. We're not asking for your money. You give what you can give, and God blesses us to be able to do things with the little that we have. And sometimes we need to understand that when we welcome others, we're welcoming Him. We're welcoming Him. Okay? And Jesus is beginning to tell us these things. And when we welcome them, we're telling them that you are invaluable in the eyes of God. This is why with these people that say that I don't need anybody else, all I need is just God or me and Jesus, and that's it. I don't need to go to church. I question whether they have Jesus. Because number one, he says, when you welcome them, you welcome me. Which says, hold on a minute. If you're not welcoming them, you're not welcoming me. So thinking that they can do it by themselves, just by themselves, them and Jesus, goes contrary to what he says. We need each other's. And so the latter part of that verse says, and if anyone gives even a cup of water to one of these little ones, who is my disciple, truly I tell you that person will certainly not lose their reward. There are times in my life that I have really messed up. And there are times in your life that I'm sure you have messed up. But can I tell you something? If I was being kind to someone and God rewarded me for it, I don't lose that reward. It is eternal. He is not going to... These people get this picture of this big chalkboard in heaven, and God standing in front of it with their name. And what does he do? You were nice to this person today. You were nice to this person today. You're nice to this person today. And you got all these check marks, right? Well, I got to be careful, because tomorrow when I'm not nice, he's going to erase that one over there. No, he doesn't. What happens is you don't get one for today. But he's not erasing those. Now, the sad part about it, and I still don't know how he's going to do it, but to know that there were certain things that I could have had that I didn't have because I was disobedient, I don't know how we're going to get through this thing. But that's up to him. Because I know that what he said is he is fair and just. And he's going to do it. All I know is I'm grateful for the ones that I've got. But I think sometimes I sure wish I got more. Why? Not for me, but for him. Because there's always time to do more. there is. In the times of my wife and I, there have been times that we've invited people into our house, you know, and a lot of times they'll think, man, that's a blessing to that person, and sometimes they don't understand how much of a blessing it is for us, you know, and a lot of times, can I say this to you? It really, I don't know. It really touches you. When there's a kid whose mom and dad are just around, and that kid, all they wanted was just someone to love them. And God gives you the opportunity to do that. And later on in life, that kid comes around and they say, you know what? Do you remember that time that you took us here or you took us there? And many times I'll say, no, but you're going to have to refresh my memory. And they'll refresh your memory. And then they'll say to you, you know, that meant the world to me. And you think, that was a nothing. But to them it was something. And then you think of the times, well, how many others could we have that we didn't? Or you get you see these kids that, and there's one girl that keeps coming to mind that we forever, I think, will always say that we wish we could have brought her into our house. And it would have changed her whole life, probably forever. But we didn't get the opportunity because others stood in our way. And you look at that and you think, why? You know? But even today, they'll write and they'll say, you know what? We just want to thank you. They try to tell them, don't thank me. Man, you just gotta thank God, you know. Ephesians chapter 2, verses 8 and 9. Look at what he says. He says, for you are saved by what? You're saved by grace through faith. And this is not from yourself. It is God's gift. It's not from works, so that you can boast, so that no one could boast. We'll all thinking about how they achieve their salvation. And may I say this, you don't achieve it. It's not something that you can work to receive. It's a gift that is given to us, each and every one. But with this gift that he gives us, he also gives us something in return. And in return, what he gives us is the Holy Spirit. And that Holy Spirit comes with characteristics that are found in the book of Galatians, chapter 5, verses 22 and 23. When he says, but the fruit, he didn't say the fruits. He says, but the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. You can't, and he says the law is not against such a thing. So when God talks about the law, he doesn't say you can't love someone because of this or because of that. He says the gift of love, there is no law against it. It's there. It's free. Freely given. Freely received. You can't pass a law and say the only way you can love somebody is this way or that way. Or if they give you $5,000 or $10,000, or they give you a meal, or they do this or do that. He says there's no law. It's something that the Holy Spirit teaches us. And it comes with the gift that is there. You know, when you talk about things that are growing, when I grew up, I had a temper. Can I share something with you? When I got saved, I still had a temper. Just because I got saved, the temper didn't go away. And my temper mostly was in me being competitive. I was a very competitive individual. When I played baseball, if we didn't win, I was mad. If I was pitching and the umpire didn't give me that little edge, he was blind. He was stupid. He shouldn't be calling this game. He should be doing this or doing that. I am probably the only parent that has ever been thrown out of a baseball park watching their kids play in Little League. But I understand there are more now. But I'm sitting there, and I think my son was pitching. I don't know. May have been, which makes it even worse. And so I didn't like the ump's calls, and so I decided I'm going to sit right behind him on the bleacher. And I did. And when he called it a ball, I said, "You missed it. That was a strike." I kept it up. He said, "You give it to me one more time, and I'm going to have you thrown out of the park." I said, "You can't do that. I work for the company. We own the park, dude, and I have freedom in this park." He says, "No, we will escort you off the park." And I said, "No, you won't." Well, yes, they did. Okay? But can I tell you something? A few years later, I got called to pastor a church in Somerville, Ohio. A lady came to the church with her 2 boys. And then one day she brought her husband. And guess who that husband was? He was the umpire that a few years prior that I had that with. Here I am preaching about the love of God and loving people. And he's remembering that's the same dude that was sitting there calling me stupid and blind and everything else. It's funny, but it's sad. You want to know why? I never could reach that guy. Never could. Because of one dumb, stupid temper. That temper has changed. Because I learned my lesson. I was sharing with my wife, I was driving and I got the eternal finger of salute from a lady because I wouldn't let her get in front of me. And I'm thinking, I've been sitting here for 20 minutes, ma'am, and you just pulled up. No, I don't think so. This is not the day. So I didn't, and she honked her horn, and I just thought she was being nice until I looked in the rearview mirror. I waved at her, but I did not give her the finger. I waved and smiled and said, ma'am, have a good day, because you need it. But we need to understand these things. Okay. But let me say this to you. That putting off the decision to follow Christ, it's not an open-ended thing. Because one of these days that invitation gets closed. And I don't know when it will be for you if you haven't. And you don't know when it will be. So, the last point we want to talk about is how to treat others with dignity and value. There's a lot of people that you're going to meet, ladies and gentlemen, who think that they have nothing to offer anybody. They're down on their luck. And there are sometimes I hear people who say, well, they're just lazy. They could go find a job. You know how hard it is to find a job now? There's help wanted signs all around. And they are, and you can probably find a job. But then the next question is, can you live on that wage? I don't know. But sometimes there are people that have been trying to find a job and can't for certain reasons. And sometimes we got to move and show a little bit of empathy for them. In this day and age, there's a whole lot of things that are going wrong. And it's very easy a lot of times for us to sit back and be judgmental. But God's not asking us to be the judge of anybody. He's asking us to love people and treating them the way that he treats us. There are times that you and I mess up royally. But I was sharing with the Sunday school class this morning the best way that I can explain this. Because I hear people all the time that say, I can't do it. You don't understand. I can't live it. You don't know my life. No, I don't. And I know you can't. But he can. But let me give you a little story. In the Bible, Jewish custom is this: that a father goes and he has his house and he has a son. And it comes a point in time for that son to get out of the house or old enough to get married. So the son goes looking for a bride, or sometimes even had a servant go look for the bride for the son and bring, and arrange that marriage. And so what ends up happening is the son would go and find the bride. Once he found the bride, he would go back to his father's house or the father's land and would build a room or a house on that property. And when that got finished, he would go get his bride, and they would come and they would have the marriage. But from the point of him leaving the father's house, coming and finding the bride, and going, to their parent and asking for, can they or can they not, get married, and what's the dowry and all this other stuff. At that point in time, they haven't had the official wedding ceremony, but they are married. Okay? Now, when they are married, they are governed by the laws of marriage. If you remember, Mary and Joseph, she was engaged. She now becomes pregnant. Joseph knows it's not his child. So he is going to divorce her or put her away privately because that was the law. You divorce. But he didn't because he found out that the child was God's. So let me share this with you and think about this for a minute. God the Father sent Jesus, his Son, to come to this earth to find his bride. And he's found her. She is us. Jesus the Son has now gone back to God the Father. And I believe he says, in my Father's house are many mansions or many rooms. If it were not so, I would have told you that I go to prepare a place for you, that where I am, there you may be also. One of these days, God's going to say, son, you're done building. You built the last room. Your bride is completed. Now go get her. Go get her and bring her home. Ladies and gentlemen, we are married to Jesus when we got saved. And may I say this to you, God does not divorce. Think about that for a minute. That'll settle it all. To understand that's how much he loves me. Even though that I'm not back at the marriage ceremony yet, and even though I mess up, and even though I fail him sometimes, he still loves me. And I'm still part of his bride. So you need to understand some things. And that is this. There are some of you that are sitting in this congregation. And God bless you. But maybe it's time that you become part of this family. And maybe God is putting you in this direction. Why? So that we all together can love one another. No matter who you are. It doesn't matter. At all. Because we're just sinners saved by grace. We look different. We act different. Because we are different. We are a peculiar people. And this morning I invite you to come and be a part of this family. But if you're here and you've never accepted Christ, I ask you to come and be a part of the best family there ever was, ever is, and ever will be. Because this is where he lives, in each and every one of us. And then after you leave this week, I need you to do me a favor. And that is this. Take a little extra time this week to engage with your neighbors, whoever they may be. Invite them over for a meal, a cup of lemonade, or just a conversation. Or try to see them as Jesus sees them. I think if we would begin to start looking at people through the eyes of the Lord, we would look at people differently.